After 15 long years away from the rugged wilds of Wyoming, Ethan found himself driving down the winding mountain road, the familiar scent of pine and damp earth filling the air. The sky hung heavy with thick gray clouds, a relentless drizzle blurring the edges of the towering evergreens. The trip was supposed to be straightforward: return to settle his late father's affairs, tie up loose ends, and then leave again for the life he had built far away. But something deep in his chest pulled him to slow down, to really look. As his headlights pierced the twilight mist, a flicker of movement caught his eye near the side of the road. He eased the car to the shoulder, the gravel crunching beneath the tires, and there, huddled against the cold mud, lay a figure, thin, trembling, and soaked through to the bone. It was a dog, a large German shepherd, ribs visible beneath matted fur, eyes weary but alert. The sight stabbed at something buried inside Ethan, something raw and aching. He stepped out into the rain, heart pounding as the dog lifted its head slowly, ears twitching despite the storm. The animal's gaze locked with his, and for a fleeting moment, time seemed to still. The dog's eyes, deep pools of both pain and recognition, pulled Ethan back to a childhood long shadowed by loss. The name, Scout, whispered from his lips, Scout, the faithful companion who had once run beside him through these same woods, years before tragedy tore them apart. The dog did not run. Instead, it let Ethan approach cautiously, its breath ragged, its body trembling with exhaustion and fear. Kneeling in the cold mud, Ethan reached out a tentative hand, feeling the rough scrape of fur beneath his fingertips. Scout shivered but did not recoil, and that fragile trust was enough to anchor Ethan in that moment. The rain blurred around them as Ethan fetched water and wrapped the trembling creature in his jacket, the familiar weight settling against him like a long-lost memory coming home. In the dim glow of the car's interior light, Scout rested his weary head on Ethan's knee, and a silent promise formed between them, a promise to face whatever lay ahead, together. Little did Ethan know, this unexpected discovery was no mere chance. It was the call to adventure, pulling him from the safety of routine into a journey that would unravel old wounds, reveal buried secrets, and challenge everything he thought he knew about home, loyalty, and redemption. The next morning broke with a reluctant sun peeking through ragged clouds, casting a pale light over the rugged landscape Ethan had once called home. Scout lay quietly beside the fire Ethan had built in the small clearing, his chest rising and falling in a rhythm that somehow mirrored Ethan's own restless heartbeat. As the warmth seeped into his chilled bones, Ethan found himself studying the dog with a mix of awe and disbelief. This was no ordinary animal lost to the wilderness. Scout carried the weight of shared history, of loyalty and love that transcended time and distance. Ethan's thoughts drifted back to the last time he had seen Scout, years ago, before everything changed. Back then, the dog had been more than a pet, he was a guardian, a companion who seemed to understand every unspoken word, every silent sorrow. But life had pulled Ethan away, tangled him in obligations and promises that had felt urgent then, until the ties to this land, to Scout, had slipped quietly through his fingers. Now, as Scout rested his head on Ethan's worn boots, a wave of clarity washed over him. This moment was not just reunion, it was a reckoning. The bond they shared, forgotten but never broken, was a beacon calling Ethan back to himself, to the parts he had buried beneath years of exile and escape. The wilderness around them was no longer a backdrop but a living, breathing presence, urging him to awaken. As Ethan reached down to scratch behind Scout's ears, the dog responded with a soft whine, eyes lifting to meet his in a silent conversation that needed no words. It was in that exchange that Ethan realized this connection was the key to the journey ahead, a journey not just through the wild, but through his own heart and history. Suddenly, the familiar landscape seemed charged with meaning. Every twisted root, every distant howl, every rustle in the underbrush whispered of stories left untold and promises yet to be fulfilled. The past and present intertwined, drawing Ethan deeper into a path he had once forsaken. In that quiet morning light, Ethan made a silent vow. He would follow this call, embrace the unknown, and seek the truth hidden beneath years of silence. Scout was not just a companion, he was a guide, a living reminder that connection, true connection, was the force that could heal and transform. With a newfound resolve, Ethan rose, feeling the stirrings of purpose ignite within him. Together, man and dog stepped forward, leaving behind the ashes of what was to face the wild terrain of what could be. The journey was just beginning, and with it came the hope of rediscovery, forgiveness, and the unbreakable ties that bind souls across time and space. As Ethan and Scout ventured deeper into the dense wilderness, the shadows lengthened and the air grew thick with an almost tangible tension. Every step forward felt like peeling back the layers of a long-forgotten story, one buried beneath years of silence and half-remembered memories. The forest around them, once merely a backdrop to his youth, now seemed to pulse with secrets waiting to be unraveled. Ethan's mind churned with fragments of the past, moments blurred by time yet etched with painful clarity. He recalled the day he left this place, the sharp sting of betrayal and loss that had driven him away. The faces of those he once trusted, now veiled in shadows, whispered accusations he wasn't sure were true. Among them, one figure loomed largest, a friend whose loyalty had turned like a knife in the dark. The deeper Ethan went, the more the past clawed its way to the surface. Each step through the underbrush echoed with the ghosts of old promises broken and love abandoned. He realized that the reunion with Scout was not mere coincidence, it was a summons to confront truths he had long avoided. The dog's unwavering presence was a tether to a reality Ethan could no longer escape. Suddenly, a familiar scent drifted on the breeze, a mixture of pine and something far more personal, a scent that pulled at the corners of his memory. It was the smell of a place he thought he'd left behind forever, the abandoned cabin nestled by the river where he and his closest companions once forged dreams. His heart pounded as he approached, the weight of years pressing down on him like a storm ready to break. Inside, dust motes danced in shafts of fading light, and silence wrapped the space like a shroud. Ethan's fingers brushed over the cracked wood of a table, over forgotten letters and photographs scattered across the floor. Each artifact was a piece of the puzzle, fragments of a life interrupted, stories left untold. Among them, he found a letter, edges worn and stained, the ink faded but the message clear, a confession, a warning, a betrayal hidden in plain sight. His hands trembled as the truth unfolded before him, a secret that explained the fractures in his world, the friend who had turned adversary, the love that had been torn apart by deceit. It was a revelation that shook the very foundation of his identity, yet it also offered a glimmer of hope, a chance to reclaim what was lost, to mend what had been broken. Ethan understood now that the journey was not just about survival or rediscovery, it was about forgiveness, both for others and himself. The past was a shadow that could no longer be feared but must be faced head-on. And with Scout by his side, steadfast and true, he felt the strength to step into the unknown, to confront the darkness and reclaim the light. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and unanswered questions. But Ethan's resolve was unshakable. The mystery of the past was a call to action, a crucible that would forge him anew. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees, he took a deep breath and prepared to walk the path of redemption. The dawn broke quietly, its soft light filtering through the thick canopy as Ethan set out from the abandoned cabin, Scout padding silently at his heels. The letter's revelations burned fresh in his mind, igniting a fire of determination that pushed him beyond exhaustion and doubt. The past was no longer a distant shadow but a living riddle demanding answers, and he was the only one who could solve it. With every step deeper into the wilderness and back toward the nearby town he once knew so well, Ethan felt the world shift around him. Familiar faces appeared in his memories like ghosts, some welcoming, others wary or hostile. He realized the investigation would require more than just retracing physical paths, he would need to confront the tangled web of relationships and buried secrets that had shaped his life's unraveling. The town, once a comforting place, now felt like a labyrinth of half-truths and guarded whispers. Ethan began quietly asking questions, speaking to old acquaintances who regarded him with a mixture of surprise and suspicion. The walls of silence were thick, but cracks began to form as his steady presence unsettled the careful equilibrium of lies. Piece by piece, a clearer picture emerged. There were discrepancies in stories, unexplained absences, and veiled warnings that hinted at deeper betrayals. Ethan discovered that the friend he once trusted implicitly had been weaving a deceitful narrative, manipulating events behind the scenes to fracture friendships and sever ties. The truth was more painful and complex than he had imagined, but it also brought a strange clarity, a path forward through the fog of confusion. One evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long, Ethan found himself in a dusty archive room tucked away beneath the town's old library. There, buried beneath layers of forgotten records, he unearthed evidence, letters, contracts, and journals, that confirmed the breadth of the betrayal. Names he had thought loyal appeared as players in a silent game of greed and jealousy. The past was no longer an enigma, it was a carefully constructed maze of manipulation designed to keep him blind and isolated. Yet amid the ruin of deceit, Ethan uncovered something else, a small, almost hidden note in a friend's diary, one that spoke of regret and a desire for redemption. It hinted that not all was lost, that some bonds might be mended, and that truth, once found, held the power to heal as well as hurt. With Scout by his side, ever faithful and steady, Ethan felt a surge of hope. The investigation was more than a quest for answers, it was a journey toward reconciliation and transformation. Each discovery, no matter how painful, was a step toward reclaiming the life stolen from him and forging a new future. The road ahead was uncertain, shadows still lingered, and challenges loomed. But Ethan was no longer running from his past, he was racing toward it, ready to confront the darkness with open eyes and a heart prepared for whatever came next. The moment of reckoning came without warning, like a cold wind that shattered the fragile calm Ethan had fought so hard to rebuild. The truth he had pieced together so painstakingly now stood before him in all its brutal clarity, a betrayal deeper and darker than he had dared to imagine. It wasn't just the lies or the manipulation, it was the very hand of the friend he had once trusted with his life, the one who had twisted loyalty into a weapon to break him. Ethan's heart clenched as the memories flooded back, the subtle betrayals masked as kindness, the whispered half-truths that slowly eroded the foundation of everything he believed. The friend, once a brother in arms, had used his closeness to spy, deceive, and orchestrate events that left Ethan isolated and vulnerable. Each revelation was a jagged shard, piercing through the armor Ethan had built around his soul. The pain was raw and consuming, a fierce storm that threatened to uproot the fragile hope growing within him. Yet, beneath the agony, there was a cold clarity. Betrayal was a wound that cut deepest when inflicted by those closest, but it also illuminated the true nature of those ties. Ethan realized that forgiveness would not come easily, nor would it come soon, but understanding the betrayal was the first step toward reclaiming his own strength. In the solitude of the night, as Scout lay quietly by his side, Ethan wrestled with the bitter cocktail of emotions swirling within him, anger, sorrow, confusion, and a deep ache of loss. The friendship that had once been a sanctuary was now a graveyard of trust. But amid the ruins, a flicker of resolve ignited, he would not be defined by the treachery of others. This pain, though fierce, was a crucible, forging Ethan into someone new, someone who could face the past without fear, who could rise above the shadows cast by deceit. The path of the hero was never smooth, it was marked by trials that tested not just the body, but the heart and spirit. This was Ethan's trial by fire. The betrayal also brought with it a profound loneliness, the kind that seeps into the bones. Yet, in this loneliness, Ethan found a strange companionship in Scout, whose unwavering loyalty and quiet presence reminded him that not all bonds were broken. There was still light in the world, still goodness worth fighting for. As dawn broke once again, painting the sky with hues of hope, Ethan made a silent vow. He would face the pain, confront the betrayal, and emerge stronger, not just for himself, but for the life still waiting to be reclaimed. The journey was far from over, but with every step forward, he was closer to healing, to justice, and to a new beginning. Ethan's world had fractured, the sharp edges of betrayal cutting deep into his very core, yet from those jagged wounds emerged a spark, a fragile ember of survival and hope that refused to be extinguished. The pain that once threatened to consume him now fueled a quiet determination, a stubborn will to endure despite the darkness that pressed close from every side. Survival was no longer just about physical endurance in the wild or navigating the treacherous maze of lies, it had transformed into a battle for his soul, a fight to reclaim his purpose and identity from the ashes of deceit. Each morning, as the pale light crept through the dense trees, Ethan woke not just to the cold chill of the forest but to a renewed sense of possibility. The wilderness that had once seemed an unforgiving prison now whispered secrets of resilience and strength, teaching him lessons that no city or friendship ever could. Scout's faithful presence was a constant reminder that loyalty and love could still exist in a world tainted by betrayal. Together, they moved through the forest with growing confidence, each step a testament to their survival, not just of body, but of spirit. In the quiet solitude, Ethan began to reflect deeply on what hope truly meant. It was not the naive optimism of a fairy tale but a fierce, gritty conviction that tomorrow could be different, that despite the scars etched into his heart, the future held the possibility of healing and redemption. This hope was the beacon guiding him through the shadowed valley of despair, the light that refused to be snuffed out even in the darkest nights. With this newfound resilience, Ethan resolved to rebuild the bridges that had been burned, starting with himself. He sought out old allies who had once been forgotten, people whose intentions were pure and whose support could fortify his resolve. Each connection rekindled was a thread weaving a stronger fabric of trust and community, proving that even in a fractured world, bonds could be mended. The journey of survival also brought with it moments of unexpected grace, a chance encounter with a stranger who offered kindness without condition, a sudden burst of laughter shared with Scout under a sky full of stars, the simple act of breathing deeply in the cool morning air. These fragments of joy became lifelines, anchoring Ethan to a world still worth fighting for. Though the road ahead was uncertain and fraught with challenges, Ethan's spirit burned brighter with every step forward. The trials of betrayal and loss had tempered him like steel in a forge, shaping a hero not defined by the wounds he bore but by the strength he found within to overcome them. Hope was no longer a distant dream, it was a living force propelling him onward, a promise that survival was not merely existence, but a beginning, a chance to reclaim his life and write a new story from the ashes. In the heart of the wilderness, amid the whispers of the trees and the steadfast loyalty of his companion, Ethan embraced this truth, that survival and hope were intertwined, inseparable forces driving the hero's journey forward. And with that, he stepped boldly into the future, ready to face whatever trials awaited with a heart unbroken and a spirit unyielding. Ethan's journey had been one of relentless struggle, a path carved through shadow and doubt, where every step felt like a battle against unseen forces threatening to swallow him whole. The wilderness, once a prison of isolation, had become his crucible, a place where pain and resilience intertwined. Yet, as days bled into nights, the weariness in his bones grew heavier, the loneliness pressing closer with each breath. Just when the weight of the world seemed unbearable, destiny unfolded in the form of a figure emerging from the haze of the forest's edge, a rescuer whose arrival would shift the course of Ethan's saga forever. The rescuer appeared as if summoned by some ancient force, a guide bearing the light of salvation in a place where darkness had long held dominion. Clad in weathered gear, their eyes shone with a quiet strength born of countless journeys through the wild and its merciless trials. There was no arrogance in their demeanor, only a steady calm that spoke of wisdom and compassion forged by experience. This was not a savior descending on a white horse but a fellow traveler, someone who understood the rawness of survival and the fragile hope it demanded. Ethan, battered and bruised but not yet broken, felt a surge of conflicting emotions, relief that the nightmare might finally ease, skepticism born of too many broken promises, and a guarded flicker of trust slowly kindling in his chest. The rescuer approached without haste, their presence a balm to Ethan's frayed nerves, their voice low and steady as they offered aid. It was not just food or shelter they brought, but a lifeline, an invitation to cross from the realm of despair into the possibility of healing and renewal. As they moved together away from the dense trees and toward the faint outline of civilization, Ethan's mind raced with questions and memories, the past and future colliding in a turbulent dance. The rescuer listened without judgment, their silence a space where Ethan could unravel the tangled threads of pain and hope. There was no rush to fix what was broken, only a shared journey of understanding and recovery, a passage that demanded courage as much as it offered mercy. With every step, the rescuer's steady presence anchored Ethan's wavering spirit. They navigated the rough terrain side by side, the wilderness behind them a testament to the trials survived, and the road ahead a mystery yet to be conquered. In that quiet companionship, Ethan glimpsed the profound truth of the hero's journey, not one of solitary glory, but a shared odyssey where help arrives when it is most needed, and salvation often comes clothed in humility and grace. The encounter marked a turning point, a crossing of thresholds where despair gave way to possibility, and the fractured hero found the strength to rise anew. Through the eyes of the rescuer, Ethan saw not just a reflection of his struggle but a mirror of resilience and hope, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, no one is truly alone. As the sun climbed higher, casting warm light over their path, Ethan's heart swelled with a cautious optimism. The road to healing was long and uncertain, fraught with shadows yet also lined with promises. But with the rescuer by his side, the journey no longer felt like a solitary fight against the night. Together, they stepped forward, two souls bound by fate, walking into the dawn of a new chapter where survival was not just an act of endurance, but the beginning of transformation.